Welcome to the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, your window into the world of diplomacy and international affairs. I'm Daniel Rahman. With over 1.4 billion people, India is now the world's most populous nation and one of the fastest growing major economies, expected to become the third largest in the world within this decade. As a technological powerhouse and regional leader, India's role in shaping Asia's future is undeniable. Closer to home, India is also Malaysia's 11th largest trading partner, with bilateral trade valued at over 170 billion in 2023. Beyond the numbers lies a deeper relationship of people, policy, and potential. Today on Diplomatic Dispatch, we explore Malaysia-India relations, then, now, and next, with none other than the High Commissioner of India to Malaysia, His Excellency B.N. Reddy. Your Excellency, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Now, allow me to start. You've presented your credentials in Kuala Lumpur in November 2021. That's slightly under 4 years now. And you've seen a series of high-level exchanges, which include Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's state visit to India, where both our leaders pledged to deepen cooperation. Looking back, what milestones convince you that we have entered a new momentum in India-Malaysia ties?
Well, at the outset, I want to thank Barnama for having me today, for having India today in the studio. And particularly, I'm so delighted to be with you, Daniel. Knowing your credentials and reputation, it's an honor for me to be having a conversation with you today. And let me start by trying to take a little background, or call it the tone of the conversation today, by looking at some of the elements of what India stands for today. I think I'm very happy that you were able to mention at the very beginning that India today, as the most populous country, which became in 2023, then now the significant part is that we have about 900 million Indian nationals who are below the age of 35 years. Now, what it means for India for the next 2 to 3 decades is something one can really reflect upon and see what it will make, what kind of difference it will make to India and India's development. Again, the 4th largest economy now in the world, which became in April this year. I think we overtook Japan, and the projections, as you mentioned, are that in a couple of years or so, it will become the 4th, move to the 3rd largest economy. And if you look at the end of the century projections, that India would be in the 1st and 2nd positions, depending on how things will pan out. Mm-hmm. So the second part is, of course, quite apart from the growth, like more significantly, India's per capita GDP has doubled in the last 10 years. And over 250 million Indian nationals have been put out of the poverty over the decade or so. And then we have the ambition of having to become a developed nation by 2047. Mm-hmm. So why I'm mentioning all this is to, because it has a significant impact on India's engagement, particularly with Malaysia. I'll come to that. Similarly, we have what is driving India's growth story is the digital revolution that's taking place in India, which is largely tech-driven. We have now tech-driven governance in India, be it in digital payments or having the world's 3rd largest startup ecosystem with fairly over 100 unicorns. Mm-hmm. Wow. And also now, looking at the climate change related challenges, we have the world's largest renewable energy program, which 500 gigawatts of renewable energy coming by end of 2030, mm-hmm. of which over 220 gigawatts have already been installed. So then comes the infrastructure revolution that's taking place, where we have the highways, for example. We are building at the rate of over 30 kilometers per day. Wow. And we have railways being constructed at the rate of 14 kilometers per day. Additional railway lines are coming. Mm-hmm. And the airports have doubled in number. So what I'm trying to say is there's a new India out there. And it is here very important that a partner country like Malaysia, for us, is very significant. We call Malaysia as part of our extended neighborhood. And it is here the 2 prime ministers, when they met in India last year, mm-hmm. Yang Amat Berhormat Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim's very historic visit, I call last year, 2024, with the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, both leaders have decided that we must raise the relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Trust me, they have such high level of partnership degree, we call it as CSP, is with select 6-7 countries in the world.
Wow.
And here we are looking at deepening engagement in wide range of areas, including defense, security, trade, investments, technology, energy, and of course at the heart of it also the people to people connect. So this is one of the important milestones, if we want to use the word. Similarly, we have had ever since Honorable Prime Minister Anwar took office in November of 2022,
Right.
we have had over 20 ministerial or deputy ministerial level delegations of 2 countries, almost half of it from India and half of it little over from Malaysia. And these have been covering diverse sectors. Now another, these obviously the relationships are not any longer talked in terms of goodwill, etc. It has to be measured by what you have on the ground. Trade and investment is an important area.
Yeah.
For example, if you look at the trade, we have over 20 billion, as you rightly mentioned, US dollar plus. So kind of trade where now we saw that significantly it has increased by over 8% compared to the previous year, the 2023. So despite the global headwinds, which we are seeing, ever since COVID, we moved away from COVID, we've had headwinds of various kinds, geopolitical challenges. But I think bilateral trade is significantly is growing.
Yeah. Excellency, Reddy, we've thanks for setting that opening. It's so broad. You spoke about youth, digital, infrastructure, strategic relations, and trade, and I would like to get into more details. If I may get to ASEAN, because this year, 2026, Malaysia is the chairperson of ASEAN with the themes inclusivity and sustainability. In your view, with this new India out there and Malaysia being part of the extended neighborhood, what role do you see India playing in supporting Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN this year? I mean, we're kind of like halfway through. How's it been so far, and what do you see coming up?
At the very outset, I want to really commend Malaysia for the leadership that it is showing in the overall ASEAN matters as a chair. I think the priorities that ASEAN has set for itself under the leadership of Malaysia, I think has been, I think they're touching on some of the very significant aspects, be it peace, stability and prosperity. Just before going into this conversation, I would also like to mention that now this is the year on which we have the second decade we call of the India's Act East policy, which was started in 2014 when Prime Minister Modi assumed office for the first time. And now we are into the second decade. Secondly, we also have elevated, that means ASEAN has elevated India's relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership, which is CSP, in 2021. So this kind of backdrop is important in trying to assess how we can move forward. And some of the key priorities that what Malaysia has set for itself during the current chairmanship is something India is trying to align with it.
Right.
Whether you look at it, for example, be it inclusivity and sustainability, ASEAN centrality to be strengthened in various manners, increasing investments and trade between ASEAN and the partner countries or the full dialogue partners, of which India has been a full dialogue partner for over 3 decades now. So all these dimensions, I think India wants to align with Malaysia's priorities. Let me touch upon few of them, which is important. For example, let's take for example tourism.
Okay.
I think it's an area of very significant importance to ASEAN because India is now contributing over 8 million tourists per annum, and I'm very happy to note that this year is been declared as the ASEAN India Year of Tourism, knowing the importance that the ASEAN countries are paying to this. And we've had a very important, I would use the word activity, ASEAN India tourism pavilion at the Mata Fair, which was held in April, where we had about 75 tour operators, out of which 35 from India, again remaining for close to 40 from Malaysia, from ASEAN region.
Right.
They all came together and tried to promote this. Similarly, trade. Now we are looking at, we'll come to this obviously in the later part of the discussion also, ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, which is being reviewed. Now there's an ambition to conclude this by end of this year during the chair of Malaysia's ASEAN chairmanship. Then we have the digital transformation. I think this is at the heart of our all ASEAN countries' progressive vision. If you look at the community vision document of 2045, which again has significant component of digital. This is where ASEAN India Fund for Digital Future has been launched, and this fund is going to be contributing toward that. Similarly, we're looking at ASEAN India Cyber Policy Dialogue, as well as wherein we're going to look at how do we strengthen digital and cyber resilience, because these days while we commit populations to do more of digital world, we must be able to provide them the necessary confidence that they can do so through cyber security and particularly digital resilience. So these are the areas where we are working together. Similarly, on the health sector, let me add here, as we speak, we have a delegation in Kuala Lumpur which is now working on adding a new chapter of ASEAN India Health Ministers Dialogue. And I think there is a great hope that we will have soon at the health ministers, because health is a, after COVID-19 pandemic, that we are all recognize the importance of the health sector. Similarly, on the sustainability front, which is because inclusivity and sustainability is the theme of Malaysia's chair of ASEAN. This is where we are looking at development of green hydrogen, widening the campaign towards climate resilience and enhancing disaster resilience, which is where India has already contributed close to $5 million to navigate this between India and ASEAN. So I can go on. Similarly, there are challenges of Myanmar, for example, which is where I think government of India has been invited to be part of the conversations. We're very happy to host the ASEAN Chair's Special Envoy Tan Sri Othman, and he was in India earlier this year, and wherein we have had a fairly detailed discussions on the way forward on how, because as you know, India has a 1,670 kilometers of land border.
That's right.
And where we are looking at also several India-ASEAN connectivity is through Myanmar. So we would like to see a prosperous and a stable Myanmar, which is where our alignment comes in with ASEAN.
Thank you, High Commissioner Reddy, for that. Clearly a lot that's currently being looked at, a lot of priorities. I'd like to narrow in first in this regard on trade and investment. You mentioned earlier that the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, or ITIGA, review is slated for conclusion by end of this year. If I may ask you to share very briefly, what do you see as the biggest win-win opportunities for Indian and Malaysian exporters as negotiations advance? I mean, what's in it for Malaysian businesses that we can look forward to from this agreement?
Well, I think let me give the larger objective with which the review has been started, the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, which was signed way back in almost a little over a decade and a half back. Now, one of the key objectives is to make it more effective, user-friendly and simple, and make it trade facilitative for businesses. And also to look at some of the challenges that are being presented by the changing global trading practices. I think there's a larger ambition in this, while at this stage I must frankly say that negotiations or discussions are on. In fact, we had the Indian delegation last month in Kuala Lumpur, and the ASEAN coordinator, which is for us, is Malaysia. And again, we are very thankful to Government of Malaysia, MITI here, for supporting the larger efforts in seeking a convergence of views from within ASEAN, so that the objective, as you said, is met with. Here I'd like to mention some issues which are of need to be addressed. As we see it, one is called the asymmetry in market access, rules of origin. I think these are the issues which, if we are able to find a consensus and a common ground, we believe that the agreement would be much more mutually beneficial.
Right, so the asymmetry?
So I think in this context, again, all this will eventually lead to expansion of trade. If you look at expansion of trade from when it was signed to now, I think it is almost close to being 3 times, almost 3 times the bilateral trade between ASEAN and India. So I think we need to address those and make it contemporary to the new global trading practices.
If I may then zoom in on a more specific, for example, we've seen reports that Tata Electronics is exploring OSAT or fab acquisition in Malaysia. How do you see the role of the High Commission position itself to turn these private sector signals into broader India-Malaysia semiconductor collaboration?
Well, thank you, Daniel. See, at the outset, let me add here, I think it's the private sector which is going to drive the semicon growth both in India and of course in Malaysia. it is important to add here, what is the ambition of India?
Right.
See, if you look in the last 4 or 5 decades, I think India is still a newcomer into the semicon industrial development. It is here India launched what is called as India's Semiconductor Mission, ISM we call it, which is where we are trying to define and develop the semiconductor design and manufacturing capabilities within the country. And I'm very happy to report at the very beginning of the conversation on this topic that we are expecting the first chip to be produced in India, which is in the 28, 29 nanometers to 90 nanometers. It will be a significant development because over 60% of the industry gets covered under this particular range of this thing. Now here we have already looking at India's market, because this is where that's where the India-Malaysia collaboration will sit very precisely. We are looking at a tripling of India's what I call semiconductor market, which is growing at the rate of CAGR of 15%, wherein we are looking at a 38 billion US dollar market in 2023, going up to 109 billion by 2030. It's almost going to go 3 times.
Yes.
Now we already have approved in India 6 major semicon manufacturing bases, wherein we have Foxconn, we have PSMC of Taiwan, Renesas, then CG Power, and several other companies are coming in, big players. So they are all now entering the Indian market, which is where now let me come to the Malaysia context. See, let me add here by the very outset saying that Malaysia is a pioneer in semicon industrial, let's say semicon value chain globally. Now, we had the visit of YB Lee Chin Tong, the Deputy Minister of Trade MITI in India in March this year. And in fact, he really desired that Malaysia would also like to be part of India's semiconductor growth story, given the trade potential and strong strengths of Malaysia. I've had the fortune of visiting Penang and Kedah, visited several plants which are in semicon industry. Let me highlight 3 points for you. One is Malaysia's competence is significantly in the advanced technology enterprises, as they call ATEs, which are so critical, I would say, particularly in the component manufacturing, which are essential for the development of semicon global value chain. This is where Malaysia's core strength, and quite apart from developing, through new chips being developed in Malaysia. So this is where we're looking at, for example, how do we encourage Malaysian private sector semicon industry to partner with Indian industries. Let me add here, already the ball has been kicked into the court, I would say, where we have many Malaysian companies looking at India to set up joint ventures, so that the answer is very simple. The top 10, 12 global semicon companies are based in Malaysia. Now they're all going to India too, because the chips are required for every industry that we are looking at. So here, the same industries which require the support in India also are where Malaysian companies supporting them for the last 4 decades. It is this which is, there is a seamless integration that can happen. So let me add the last word. Please. Today, the Tata Semicon, for example, the country head for Tata Semicon manufacturing is a Malaysian national, Mr. KC Ang. He has been appointed. So again, there are several linkages that are looked at, and I'm very confident that this will be the story. And we are working at a government-to-government MOU also.
So at government-to-government level and private sector level, there are all these opportunities. And it's quite heartening to know that in that sense, it is something that Malaysia can share with India. High Commissioner, I'd like to ask also a question about digital and tourism. So we understand that India is very far ahead technologically, and there's integration across that has raised the livelihoods of millions and millions of people. At the same time, we also see that payment networks are something that's really important, especially for cross-border transactions to encourage tourism. Now, what are your thoughts on the collaborative campaigns that you are planning with Tourism Malaysia to reach the 1.7 million visitor target? And how does digital play a role?
Before I just come to the digital payment, I just want to add one more line on the semicon.
Oh, sure.
One is, which is, we have today 20% of the global design workforce
that's big
in semiconductor industry is based in India. And you have over 13% of global semicon back-end output is coming from Malaysia. I think we see that synergy of a great nature. Just to add that point.
Sure, yeah.
Now, coming to the digital payments, I think this is a story we want to tell the world. India's story of digital payments.
That's right.
Today, I'll come to that also a little later if we can have the time. But more importantly, the UPI, Unified Payment Interface, which has been developed in India, has now enabled quite a lot of digital payments in India. And where it is set up, it has been developed by NPCL, National Payments Corporation of India. And they're in close conversation with Malaysia's PayNet, which is the, digital payment gateway of Malaysia. Now here what we are looking at is how can we facilitate what we call them as three things here.
Okay.
One, can we get acceptance of UPI powered apps in Malaysia?
Okay.
That's the first part of it. Second is acceptance of, let's say, apps developed in Malaysia, like Do It Now, etc., to be recognized in India, and develop whatever called domestically developed QR code networks to be operational in both countries. Now, the ambition is very high, and I'm very confident that over the period of the next, during the course of the year, I'm very confident it will help the tourists from India coming here, or tourists going from Malaysia to India, to be able to use the QR codes in their domestic. Let me add here, today the tourists coming from India, which is now increasing over close to 40 to 50% per annum. We crossed 1.2 million last year. And the expectation, as rightly said, is to increase to 1.7 million. They're able to get visa-free travel to Malaysia.
Right.
Now, they have, what they need is foreign exchange now. If they decide to travel at a short notice, if they're able to access the QR codes in Malaysia, imagine the kind of speed at which people are able to decide and able to make their journeys at a short notice.
Hi, Commissioner. Speaking about tourism and transfer, one thing that's really important is also the security aspect. And, how do you see India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative complement Kuala Lumpur's own priorities on maritime security, supply chain resilience, and green growth? Because all of this also will have an impact on the mindset of the people and the views that these countries will have towards one another. We have about 5 minutes left, so... Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Look,
and I've got one more closing question after this.
Yeah, sure. See, one, of course, we are looking at maritime security and stability. One wherein we are looking at capacity building in maritime domain awareness. It's a very important concept. Similarly, we are looking at, as part of that, joint patrols and coordinated responses to maritime threats. Be it piracy, be it to what I call IUU fishing.
Right.
Then we are looking at joint exercises between the naval teams of both sides, and also we have what we call as information fusion center for the Indian Ocean region in India. We're looking at information sharing through this particular platform. Second is the supply chain resilience, where we are looking at how do we invest in the port-led development and multimodal transport, because with growing trade, growing travel, we're looking at growing the supply chain resilience as an important area. And we are looking at, as part of India's Act East policy and SAGA, we call security and growth for all in the region, we have a vision of supporting regional logistics networks, because they'll be the key in ensuring the supply chain resilience. Looking at the green growth, and as we're talking about climate cooperation, this is the other area where, very importantly, we are looking at sustainable fisheries, ecotourism, because another important aspect, how do we make tourism more sustainable and friendly? Because this is the area where, as you know, in Europe, I think there are challenges now. We don't want to get to that part, where we want to develop it as a friendly tourism. Similarly, we have collaboration in the marine pollution control. This is an area where, and also climate adaptations. And the last word I want to add in this concept is the India developed together with France what is called International Solar Alliance. And again, India has developed what is called as Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, where we are trying to look at how can we connect with Malaysia and with other ASEAN countries so that we all work towards this climate cooperation in a big way.
Hi, Commissioner, we only have about a minute and a half left. It's been a fascinating conversation, but if I may get your final thoughts on, you are a fascinating diplomat. You began your foreign service career in '93, you've served in Malaysia twice, and I must ask you, what personal insights have you gained about Malaysia's evolving place in the world, And how has that shaped your diplomatic approach and perhaps your optimism for the future?
Thank you, Daniel. I think this is a very touchy question for me because, I started, as you rightly said, 1993 in Jakarta. And I consider myself as part of the team from India, which is part of India's then Look East policy,
Right.
which has become Act East policy. And over 3 decades, have been associated in the region. This is my 4th assignment in the region.
Right.
So it's a very, important year for me because this is the Malaysia's chair of ASEAN, and India is becoming comprehensive strategic partnership at the ASEAN level, at the bilateral level. So it gives me kind of immense satisfaction having been in Southeast Asia and particularly in Malaysia. Because what I see Malaysia is, over the years, it has emerged as a national, what I call them as, it has developed as a country with global aspirations, regional responsibilities, and of course there are complexities at various levels that are evolving. So for me as a diplomat, I'm moving from a mere listening mode to call it as a more proactive mode. And then from policy promotion to partnership building. And more importantly, develop a common narrative for mutual benefit of our 2 countries. I think this is where I feel that I have become more empathetic, holistic, and culturally more attuned because of the very strong people-to-people connect that we have, wherein Malaysia hosts the 2nd largest Indian diaspora in the world.
Yes.
So all of it makes, as an individual, a very assuring time for the future, for India, Malaysia, and India-ASEAN relations.
Excellency, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for your passion. We covered so much ground, and I think that's not even enough, and I hope we can have you again on the show to really look into the other areas that we can speak about. You are right in that your role has certainly defined Malaysia's relationship with India, and thank you for your proactiveness. For those of you at home, thank you for joining us. As we've heard, this relationship continues to grow, built on mutual respect, cooperation, and a shared vision for the future. I'm Daniel Rahman. Join us next time. Till then, take care.